Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, which is Adapting Your Brand Strategy During COVID-19, presented by the Lesley Warren Design Group. My name is Allison Mitchell, and I'm part of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce team. Before we start our webinar, there are a few housekeeping items that I would like to share. First, your microphone should be muted, but if you could please double check to ensure that it is to reduce background noise, we would appreciate it. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar, and you can do so by typing your questions into the questions box in your control panel. Our presenter will be answering your questions at the end of her presentation. Following the webinar, you will receive a follow-up email with a link to today's webinar recording as well as the slides. Our presenter today is Andrea Martin. She is the Director of Marketing with the Lesley Warren Design Group. With over 15 years of marketing experience, Andrea is an experienced marketer, passionate about helping brands understand why they are in business, what they want to accomplish, and how they are going to get there. Driven by her natural curiosity to derive meaning from information, Andrea collaborates with Lesley Warren Design Group clients to solve business problems with strategic marketing. I would now like to invite Andrea to begin her presentation.
Great. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Allison. It's a pleasure to be here with you all this afternoon to share some marketing insights on behalf of Lesley Warren Design Group on how to adapt your brand strategy during COVID-19. Throughout my career, I've had the opportunity to hone my craft while working in diverse industries ranging in size from large enterprise to early stage startups here in Waterloo. My experience in these very different environments has taught me how to scale and translate enterprise strategic thinking into more relevant and attainable marketing strategies for our SMB clients. For the past 2 years, I've had the pleasure of working at Lesley Warren Design Group alongside this great team of creative professionals. We are a full-service marketing agency dedicated to building brands through strategic marketing and design. We promise a boutique experience that delivers big agency results. Pictured in the middle of this photo, you will see Lesley Warren, who is also on our webinar today, and she would like to express her gratitude to the Chamber for allowing us to present today, and to all of you also for generously giving your time to be here with us today. Before we can talk about adapting your brand strategy, I think it's important to first define what a brand strategy is. Your brand strategy is a long-term plan for the development of a successful brand in order to achieve specific goals. A well-defined and executed brand strategy affects all aspects of a business and is directly connected to 3 important things: consumer needs, emotions, and competitive environments. Your brand strategy is far more than your logo and your colors. It defines what you stand for. It's a promise you make and the personality you convey. Your brand lives in every day-to-day interaction you have with your market through the images you convey, the messages you deliver on your website, how your proposals look, how your emails are communicated, all the way through to your marketing campaigns and right down to the way your employees interact with customers. Your brand strategy is how you control your brand's positioning, which is how your customers perceive your business relative to your competitors. So the challenge is, if you don't proactively position your brand and control your message, your customers will do it for you. So why is it necessary to control and adapt my brand strategy right now? Because COVID-19 has dramatically changed consumer needs, emotions, and competitive environments. And your business strategy needs to reflect these changes in order to remain relevant. So how has your industry changed? For each and every one of you, it could be different depending on your industry. But in general terms, consumer needs have changed because people are working from home, laid off, potentially unemployed. Priorities have shifted towards health and safety and financial considerations. Perceptions of what is important has changed. Buying behavior has shifted online versus in-store and towards local versus international. People are looking for new and safe solutions to everyday challenges. Emotions are also heightened, from fear of illness, the fear of the unknown. Social isolation can lead to loneliness, and financial uncertainty and stress causes stress. There's tension for caring for your children 24/7, and a desire to support and protect our local healthcare workers, elderly, and high-risk populations. And now we're also dealing with the stresses of reopening and what that looks like for our small business and our local economy. This is impacted by the government closures and now the new regulations on reopening. There's been supply chain disruptions and shortages. Industry demand has either spiked or curled off. Some have remained unchanged if they're lucky. Retooling is also out there, and businesses are looking to fulfill a new purpose. There's also reopening guidelines and regulations that are changing the way businesses work. It's clear to see that with so much unprecedented change happening all at once, it's easy for both consumers and businesses to be completely overwhelmed, making relevant, timely messaging the only thing people have the capacity to listen to right now. So I challenge you to consider, how can your brand help your customers right now? So we covered what a brand strategy is and the importance of relevant messaging to reflect current customer needs, emotions, and competitive environment. So now we can look at how to build a brand strategy. When I build, review, or modify any brand strategy for clients, I always start with why, what, and how. Your purpose is your why. Why does your brand exist? Your vision is your what. What's the ultimate goal of your business? What are you trying to accomplish? Your mission is your how. How are you going to get there? The extent to which these three brand strategy elements are impacted and require adaptation will greatly depend on the impact COVID-19 has had on your specific industry. Has your industry been changed temporarily, indefinitely, or potentially forever? And maybe we don't even know that yet. But for the majority of businesses, your purpose will likely remain unchanged. Your vision might need to be adapted to a short-term vision to fulfill maybe an immediate need or a temporary change in your industry, or maybe even a new industry. But your mission is likely to be the most impacted as businesses are forced to detour and find temporary workarounds due to regulations and industry changes. So what about the intangibles of your brand strategy? The aspects of your brand strategy that will likely need to be adapted the most are the intangibles of your brand that you communicate through your core values, brand promise, tone, personality, and of course, positioning. Your core values must be aligned with consumer needs and perceptions today in order to establish an emotional response to your brand. Your tone and personality need to be soft and empathetic to reflect your brand's sincerity and understanding of the current situation, while still offering support, optimism, and encouragement. And you can see this being done in most television ads, and we can see some are starting to slowly shift back. Your brand promise is what you're promising to do for your customers during COVID-19. Most importantly is your positioning. How do you want to be perceived right now? In order to influence consumer perceptions, you must tailor relevant messaging to positively and proactively position your brand in the way that you want to be perceived. Your brand strategy is told and shared with the world through your brand story. And your brand story is combined by looking at your strategy elements and your emotional elements and combining them into your brand story. Your brand story should also be adapted to account for the changes in your brand strategy elements, and stories are scientifically proven to get a person's attention, and all businesses are competing for customer attention, making the best strategy a story. Your brand story is a narrative used to emotionally connect your brand to customers by linking what you stand for to the values you share with your customers. It's important to remember that the main character of your brand story is not you, and it's not your service, and it's not your product. It's always your customer. Your customer must be the hero, and your brand is the guide. Continually adapting your storytelling throughout the different phases of this pandemic will help your brand remain relevant and allow you to connect emotionally with your customers. During phase 1, businesses were forced to react quickly while trying to mitigate negative brand impact. During phase 2, businesses had to address customers' changing needs and adapt their brand strategy in order to manage customer expectations. As we continue to move through our slower reopening and recovery phase, we need to be aware that ongoing reaction and adaptation is the new normal. We are going to have to continue to do the necessary things as the situation evolves and react appropriately. Trying to anticipate and scenario plan will aid businesses in their ability to react more quickly. In addition, there are other strategies that you can consider. Next, we'll discuss 5 strategies you can implement in your storytelling to remain relevant and top of mind. Strategy 1, address customer concerns. How can I ease customer fears? Fear is a powerful emotion that can change consumer behavior dramatically. Reassuring customers can help strengthen relations, and it also shows that you care. In this example, Kleenex and Cottonelle partnered with the United Way to shift consumer behavior away from stockpiling and towards sharing. So the campaign was about sharing toilet paper. I mean, everyone was panicked when the pandemic started and started stocking up on toilet paper, creating massive shortages and fear and panic amongst the masses. So Cottonelle and Kleenex showed us how if you shared toilet paper with those in need, they would donate $1 for every social post that featured that sharing and generosity and was tagged with the hashtag #ShareASquare. And this is running still through to June 1st, and they're going to donate up to $100,000. And they responded with optimism. That's what I really liked about this example. They also reassured customers that their supply chain was okay, that they're working around the clock and communicating their brand effort. They showed empathy and supportive positioning, and they took matters into their own hands as an industry thought leader to devise a solution. They portrayed their core values by partnering with the United Way, and what I love most is that they incentivized generosity with generosity of their own. While TV ads might not be in the budget for small businesses, the strategy behind this ad is still very much applicable. Businesses can incentivize social followers to post and share how they use your product or service, or partner with a local nonprofit and show community support by donating a portion of your sales. This is another example of how Loblaws eased customer fears by creating a dedicated web page for posting updates on their response to COVID-19. What I appreciated the most about Loblaws' approach was its speed and simplicity. Their first message was posted on March 13th. The messaging is also coming from the top down from Galen Weston himself, and it addresses supply chain concerns, informs of the increased safety measures and sanitizing measures being taken in the stores, explained how they're dealing with in-store cases of COVID-19, which shows foresight, transparency, and accountability. They're also securing PPE for staff, which shows concern for safety and well-being of all employees and customers. And that also communicates their core values. They've also topped up pay for staff, showing leadership positioning and compassion, and communicating their core values as well. So strategy 1 takeaways. How can you address your customer concerns? You can communicate transparently, share what you're doing, offer reassurance, act with empathy, and make sure you follow the government reopening guidelines. Strategy 2, highlight how you can help. Consider what problems are my customers struggling with right now. A crisis is a great time to build customer loyalty and deepen relationships. If you don't know what your customers need right now, I'd suggest connecting with them one-on-one by phone or email, or conducting a survey to reach many customers quickly. Understanding your customer needs is critical in order to offer the right solution. In this example, we look at how new government regulations have impacted the insurance industry, necessitating education on how these changes impact both consumers and businesses. What I like about Economical's approach is that they lead with soft positioning in their headline, "We're here for you." They clearly segmented their markets by individuals and businesses so that they can individually address their unique needs. They're addressing the financial concerns of clients by offering payment deferrals and flexible payment options, and they show thought leadership by providing articles to educate consumers so they can make informed decisions for themselves. In this example, we look at Enterprise Rent-A-Car and their proactive problem solving. With colleges and universities announcing campus closures in response to coronavirus concerns, Enterprise wanted to make it easier for students to get home to their families by reducing the minimum age to rent a vehicle to 18 and waiving the young renter fees for rentals through to May 31st. What I loved about this story was they bent their own rules to do a good deed, which showed good corporate citizenship. They saw a need and didn't hesitate to react in alignment with their core values. They took measures into their own hands and established new customer relationships and built gratitude. So consider this. Any driver or any student rather, who was stranded essentially at their school and needing to get home when the schools closed, who was then able to rent a car through Enterprise, would show so much gratitude, not only by the student who they solved a huge problem, gratitude from the parents who might not have had the resources to get their child home quickly. So what does that mean for long-term brand value? You've already established potentially a new user as they're growing, they're only teenagers potentially, and have a lifetime of car rentals ahead of them, and their parents would also probably show gratitude and brand preference to a brand that showed such leadership in a difficult time. So solving problems can build gratitude and lasting relationships, and bending the rules is as simple as offering free shipping, removing minimum orders, or expanding your delivery area. So strategy 2 takeaways for highlighting how you can help include offering a solution first, be a leader, not a follower. Responsibly bending the rules is okay. These are unprecedented times. Share your industry insights. Be a thought leader. And innovate a solution. Be a problem solver. Strategy 3, act in alignment with your core values. Consider how will your actions and response to COVID-19 be perceived and remembered. If you don't position your brand, your customers will do it for you. In this example, we look at Ford Motor Company's ad in response to COVID-19. Although you must make adaptations to your brand storytelling, you still need to sound familiar and act like yourself. What I liked about this ad is how Ford, even without using visuals, aka no trucks, their ad still sounded like Ford. They referenced their legacy for enduring trying times, their messaging built to lend a hand, as they were the first automaker to offer financial assistance and was a market leader in that regard. And they communicated their adopted brand positioning while still sounding familiar. Built Ford proud, built to lend a hand, built for right now. So strategy 3, how will your actions, response be perceived and remembered takeaways? Proactively position your brand, act authentically, think long-term brand value, and deepen your customer relationships. Strategy 4, expand digital brand experiences. Consider how can I share my story and engage my audience online. Consumers are on their devices now more than ever, making digital storytelling an important part of your brand strategy. Even if you're not a social media expert, there are many ways for you to engage your audience online while also developing new revenue and value producing opportunities. According to the Canadian Internet Registration Authority, almost 90% of Canadians have an internet connection, and nearly all of them use social media to some extent, while 61% engage on social media every single day. If you still aren't convinced social media makes sense for your business, listen to these stats from Online Business Canada's 2019 report on social media use in Canada. 86% of Canadians interact with businesses on social media. Canadians spend over 80% of their social media time interacting with companies. Canadians also follow brands and businesses on social media. On Facebook, 59% follow businesses, and on Instagram, 27% follow businesses. Social media is a great way for businesses to share their story, engage with your audience, and build an online community of followers. In this example, we look at how local business Natural Sound expanded their digital brand experiences using Facebook Live and Shop. Natural Sound went live on Facebook and conducted a live auction of some of their vinyl records. Bidders were asked to comment sold along with name of the record to purchase products, and contactless delivery and pickup was arranged afterwards. They have also created a Facebook shop and connected it to their e-commerce website in order to engage in social selling. What I liked about this example is how they used Facebook's broadcast tool Live to create an online auction which delivered a unique and engaging brand experience online. It was also an innovative way to drive revenue while also staying top of mind. Creating a Facebook shop is great if your business has physical products. You can easily build an online store and either link products to your e-commerce site or use the message button to arrange for payment offline if you don't have an e-commerce site. Selling on social media is a growing trend. PayPal's social commerce trend study reports that 47% of Canadian social media users are shopping on social networks and spending an average of $77 per month. And you might be surprised that Canadian men are social shopping slightly more than women. The most frequently shopped networks among Canadians include Facebook at 29%, Snapchat at 26%, and Instagram at 25%. Another example is new virtual experiences. If people cannot come to your brand, bring your brand to your people. If you don't have a physical product to sell, you can still create brand experiences virtually. Brands built on delivering an experience all over the world are creating and sharing new virtual experiences online for free. From virtual museums and roller coaster rides to live streaming aquariums and concerts, we have been united around shared experiences online. You can create this unity with your customers also by developing brand experiences through shared stories on Instagram and Facebook, or by sharing your knowledge through video, or by incorporating video into your sales process. Influencer marketing platform Clear came out with recent research that claims IG stories usage is up by 15% since the pandemic outbreak. If you're looking for tools to facilitate video, Vidyard has a free video tool to record and send screen share videos, and it's available at vidyard.com/virtual-teaching. Loom.com is also offering unlimited videos until July 1st on their free platform plan. So these are all great ways to use video to create more engaging digital brand experiences. So with social media consumption on the rise and a captive audience at home, there's no better time than the present to start building your brand online through engaging storytelling and shared experiences. So takeaways: start social selling, go live, build your online community, share your expertise using video, and create a virtual experience for your customers. Strategy 5, monitor changing consumer behavior because new habits are forming. Consider, how can your brand engage customers in forming these new habits? It takes an average of 66 days to form a daily habit. However, once new buying behaviors are established, they can be hard to change once formed, especially if people are seeing a benefit. According to a recent study by McKinsey & Company, consumers continue to spend significant time on home-based activities. To work around restrictions, consumers have adopted digital and low-touch solutions like video conferencing, curbside pickup for groceries, and telemedicine. Looking ahead to the next normal, around 40 to 60% of surveyed consumers who adopted these new products and services intend to continue. So there's opportunity in engaging these new habits, because if these new habits are here to stay, you don't want your brand to be left behind. Consumers are also trying new brands when the ones they're used to purchasing are no longer available, creating new opportunities to engage with new customers. Between 75 and 90% of Canadian shoppers say they favor shopping locally and view it as one of the key things a consumer can do to support their community. One of the hardest hit industries, no doubt, has been the food service industry, but resilient businesses are innovating new ways to reinvent the brand experiences they deliver. From distance dining to curbside pickup to local food and drink collaborations, restaurants are adapting their services to deliver touchless brand experiences. In the Netherlands, this Amsterdam restaurant, pictured on the video screen, has created outdoor dining greenhouses for 2 people to facilitate social distancing while still being able to provide a safe outdoor dining experience. Kind of romantic. Locally, Little Mushroom Catering has adapted from catering services to curbside pickup, weekday lunch drop-offs, and selling essential pantry items such as yeast, flour, and homemade preserves. Another local example is how craft brewery, Rural Roots, and catering company Never Enough Time teamed up and are offering a dish and drink collaboration for curbside pickup or delivery. These are just a few examples locally and abroad of how resilient businesses are finding new ways to adapt to changing consumer needs and behaviors. Since gatherings of large crowds do not look to be in our foreseeable future, brands are also congregating online by means of virtual events. Home Hardware just held its spring home show as a virtual event, and from what I've heard, it was a great success. In addition, one cannot ignore the cost savings of travel, accommodation, marketing materials, all associated with these in-person events. Virtual job fairs are also being utilized to facilitate recruitment online. And I noticed that the Chamber has also done well to adapt and transition their events, P2P groups, and networking opportunities online by using new technologies like Hopin for their virtual speed networking event. I myself am curious to know if anyone on the webinar has attended a virtual trade show, job fair, or event, and would love to know what your experience was like. Maybe you can share your experience during the Q&A or connect with me after the webinar. So strategy 5, monitoring changing consumer behaviors because new habits are forming. Engage your brand in forming new customer habits. Your takeaways: adapt your product or service to fit new lifestyle adaptations. Learn from what other nations are doing, what's working, what's not. Be accessible to your customers and make sure to stay top of mind. Engage virtually to deepen customer relationships. As we wrap up the webinar, I just wanted to recap the 5 strategies you can implement as you adopt your brand storytelling to changing consumer needs, emotions, and competitive environment. Strategy 1, address customer concerns. Strategy 2, highlight how you can help. Strategy 3, make sure you act in alignment with your core values. Strategy 4, expand your digital brand experiences. And strategy 5, make sure you monitor changing consumer behavior and engage in new habit forming. It's also important to remember that we're in the middle of a rapidly evolving pandemic situation where any strategy implemented is not set it and forget it long-term solution. As entrepreneurs and business leaders, you must proactively monitor the situation and be prepared to continually react and adapt your brand strategy in order to remain relevant and offer timely messaging and solutions that meet the changing needs of your customers. So your homework is to ask yourself, how can I ease customer fears? What problems are my customers struggling with right now? How will your brand's actions and pandemic response be perceived and remembered? How can I share my story and engage my audience online? And lastly, how can your brand engage customers in forming new habits? This concludes our webinar on adapting your brand strategy during COVID-19. I hope you learned some new strategies that you find relevant for your own brand and that I've given you some takeaways and considerations to ponder to keep you thinking strategically and motivated to react and adapt quickly as the situation evolves. At this time, I'd like to thank you for attending this afternoon and would be more than happy to answer any questions you might have. And we'll turn it over to Allison.
Great, thank you so much, Andrea. So as Andrea mentioned, please feel free to type your questions into the questions box in the control panel. And maybe we'll start with this question. Andrea, if a business has implemented a brand strategy, how would they know whether or not that brand strategy is effective? Are there certain things that they can do to test that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think over time, you need to always be looking at your vision, mission, and purpose to see if they're still aligned. The one thing I always tell clients is that it's so important to have a strategy, because if you don't have a strategy, you don't know when your strategy has changed. So I think by documenting what your strategy is and ensuring that you revisit it and ask the questions regarding the relevance, or, has my purpose changed? Why am I doing what I'm doing? What are we doing? How are we getting there? And make sure that what you've documented is aligned with what you're currently doing and that it makes sense for the present time.
Okay, great, thank you. What are you hearing from the clients that you're working with during this time in terms of questions they have around brand strategy or challenges, or how has their perspective changed with COVID?
I think there is a challenge with small business because you need to keep the doors open and you need to keep pushing through it and you need to figure out new ways to drive revenue, but you also need to be really sensitive to the situation and understand that not everyone's in the same boat. And so I think there's been a challenge with just knowing what's okay and what's not okay, and kind of walking that line between I need to continue with moving my business forward, but I need to do it in a respectful and methodical way.
Okay, great, thank you. Is there any advice that you would give specific brands who are business to business or have a very specific niche offering?
Yeah, I think it's really important to connect with your customers at a B2B level. I mean, every business is different and it depends what your product or service offering is. But I think in B2B, you have a unique opportunity to really solve big problems for customers that can build long-term brand value and relationships that even if you give a little bit right now, it should return itself because there's gratitude involved, like I mentioned. And so for B2B customers, I'd really encourage them to reach out and connect with their clients to really understand their niche and unique needs in order to develop relevant messaging aligned with each unique customer. And I think it's really account-based because everybody's business and situation is unique and different, and you can't treat everyone the same.
Okay, great, thanks. Now, we've got some members that are not-for-profits, and I'm just curious to know from you, would the path that a not-for-profit takes to developing their brand strategy, would it differ from a business?
Not really. We work with a lot of nonprofits at Lesley Warren Design Group, and we undertake the same brand strategy framework that I undertake with any B2B client or B2C client. It's just a little bit different when it's not for profit. Your audiences are different and there might be, more people involved in the decision-making process, but the process undertaken is actually the exact same.
Okay, great, thank you. If there are any other questions, please feel free to type them in. Andrea, it looks like we've come to the end of our questions, so if there's anything else you want to add, please feel free.
Yeah, if anyone has any additional questions that they think of while they're doing their homework, on the second slide that will be circulated to you after the webinar, I do have my email and LinkedIn information, so please feel free to connect. I love to talk to brands, to new entrepreneurs, to anybody who's interested in marketing and strategy and looking for any sort of assistance. Please feel free to reach out.
That's great. Thanks so much. And as I mentioned earlier, there will be a follow-up email that goes out that has a link to this webinar recording as well as the slides that Andrea has shared with us today. So you will be able to review the homework that Andrea has given you, and you are more than welcome to follow up with her. Andrea, I'd like to thank you for joining us today to share your time and your expertise with us. It was really helpful, and I'm sure that it helped those that joined us today. To our attendees, I would like to thank you for joining us and sharing your time with us today. Please feel free to have a look at the Chamber's website for the list of our upcoming webinars, as well as you can access previous webinar recordings that we have hosted. And again, Andrea, I would like to thank you so much for your time today.
That's great. Thank you.